blow, blue. Build, built. Buy, bought. Come, came. Cut, cut. Do, did. Draw, drew. Drive, drove. Eat, ate. Fall, fell. Feed, fed. Find, found. Fly, flew. Get, got. Give, gave. Go, went. Have, had. Hold, held. Keep, kept. Know, knew. Lead, led. Leave, left. Let, let. Make, made. Mean, meant. Meet, met. Pay, paid. Put, put. Ride, rode. Run, ran. Say, said. See, saw. Sell, sold. Send, sent. Set, set. Sit, sat. Sleep, slept. Speak, spoke. Speed, sped. Spend, spent. Swim, swam. Teach, taught. Tell, told. Think, thought. Throw, threw. Win, won. Write, wrote.
And welcome to the English Language School. We are I'm not gramming. What? Good morning. We are very glad to have you here, and I'm so grateful that you are with us on a beautiful Monday morning. It feels like a Monday. Good morning, Miss Carlita. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hi, where's my beautiful Kelly? And Brenda. I'm looking for all my beautiful people. Good morning, Carlita. Today we are going to practice a reading as per usual, practice our sentence structuring, and then finish our discussion on modal verbs. Modal verbs, if you remember, are the types of verbs that we use. Sometimes they are called helping verbs. We use them to ask questions and to say things negatively. So for example, with the word can. Can is a modal verb that we use in front of our basic verb to describe ability. If we want to use it in the negative form, we say can't or cannot. Can't will talk about inability. For example, I can't run very fast. I can't run very fast. I can run, but not fast. I don't know. I can swim. I can swim. This is a good example. Our first word is our subject, I, talking about myself. I, and then after we have our auxiliary or modal helping verb, can. I can. The last or next word we use is the word swim. I can swim. Let's look at a video that talks about the modal verbs, how we use them, and some of the big 3 mistakes that people often make when we talk about modal verbs. Are we ready? The other one. But you see how we used this one before. He can swim. She can swim. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Permission, advice, obligation, possibility, can, could. David can speak 3 languages. He could speak fluent French when he was 5. Can, could, or may. Can I sit in that chair, please? Could I open the window? May I borrow your dictionary? Should. You should visit your dentist at least twice a year. You should try to lose weight. Must or have to. I must memorize all of these rules about tenses. You have to take off your shoes before you get into the mosque. Might, may, could, or can. It looks nice, but it might be very expensive. Richard may be coming to see us tomorrow. modal verbs asking permission. Modal verbs asking permission. Informal. Can. Can I borrow your pen for a minute? Can I speak to John Wilson? Polite. Could. Could I please have a glass of beer? Could I open the window? Formal. May. May I ask a question, please? May we go home now? Polite. Would. Would you mind if I asked you something?
Sweet. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so as we said, would is a polite word. It's a polite way to ask a question like, would you? Would you care for some more coffee? Or would you? Would you like to go to the movies with me? Yes, I would. As usual, when we answer the question, we will take our subject and our verb and put them in reverse. So for example, we'll have our auxiliary of would. Would you? Would you mind if I asked you something? Would is our auxiliary and you is our subject. Would you? For our answer, we simply change the you to I, and then would. I would. Oops, no. Would you? I would. Would you? Would you like a cup of coffee? Yes, I would. Can I borrow your pen for a minute? Can I borrow your pen for a minute? Can I is going to be the question, and for the answer, it will be yes, you can. Or in the negative, no, you can't. If you want to be more formal, it is better to use the word could. Could is a good word because it is similar to can, but for questions especially, it is much more polite. It's a very nice and pleasant way to ask. So, could I please have a glass of water? Or could I get some help? Let's look at our PowerPoint to review the functions of our auxiliaries, and then we have a test. Does anyone have any questions about our modal, auxiliary, or helping verbs? I don't see questions, but if you have questions, put them in the comment section below. No questions, I have no answers. Well, I do have answers, but I don't know what the answer should be without a question. Now I have Beyonce stuck in my head. You must not know about me. Beyonce is the best. Okay, so we use the term modal verbs. Modal verbs is equal to auxiliary verbs. We may say auxiliary or we may say modal. It's cool. Technical difficulties. See, we might need Robert forever.
Yeah, we got it. Sorry.
It's not a computer problem.
It's a you problem.
It's a you problem.
Ready.
All right. Well done. Thank you. All right. So modal verbs are used to describe different things. Let's look at our next slide. One thing that modal verbs are used to describe are ability. You have the ability to do something, or possibility, the possibility to do something. We use words like may to talk about permission to do something. For example, I need to go to the bathroom. May I go to the bathroom? Thank you. Obligation. Maybe we use the word should. Should implies that there is an obligation. Maybe you owe someone a responsibility and you should do something. For example, I should go running tomorrow. I have an obligation to my team to run. Expectability, not a word. Probability. We use the word could to talk about a probability. It is probable that it will rain today. There's a good probability that it will rain today. It could rain today. Let's look at our next slide. Oh, we have fun things. Huh? Next slide. Nope. Yes, no?
Yes.
Nope. Oh, cool. I got nothing. All right. Actually, can we skip to the next slide? Sweet. Perfect. So, again, our structure. This is only review before the quiz because I know that you know. The structure of our modal verbs is very first our subject. Our subjects in English are I, you, he, she, it for things, we, and they. After our subject, we will put our modal verb. So subject, modal verb, subject and then modal verb. Our modal verb can be words like can or should, etc. And then after, we put our infinitive or our basic verb without the to. So for example, I think we have some examples in the next slide. That I will see in a second. He can speak German fluently. He's able to speak German fluently. Do you notice that we do not say he can to speak German? No, simply he can speak German. He can speak German. He can speak German fluently. Because can is talking about your ability, when we say can, we can equally say is able to, but we must say those three words together. So, for example, he can speak German fluently is equal with he's able to speak German fluently. Much longer, equal, the same, but longer. Next slide. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Miss Carlita. It is puedo. Puedo is like can. And ability, able, tiene capaz, he is able to do something. So with the example number 1, for example, he's able to drive a car. Equally, he can drive a car. But again, we will not put the word to, only he can drive a car. He can too drive a car? No, he can drive a car. Number 2. Thank you, Ms. Duran. We can use both. So for number 2, my daughter is capable of playing the piano beautifully. My daughter is capable of playing the piano beautifully. Is capable of is equal to is able to. But you notice we have the word is. So it is your choice. You may say is, como is able to, or you will say is, as in is capable of. More common is the word can, mostly because it's easy. But it is equal to say is able to or is capable of. My daughter is capable of, all three, is capable of playing, con ing, playing the piano beautifully. My daughter can play the piano beautifully. Last example. She's an excellent secretary. She's an excellent secretary. She has the ability to type 80 words a minute. Has the ability to. Again, we need all 4 words together. Has the ability to. She has the ability to type 80 words per minute. Or equally, she can. She can type 80 words per minute. Let's go to a visual that we have that reviews all of the modal and auxiliary verbs that we have before we take our test. Remember, when we want to say something in the negative, we will take our modal or auxiliary verb and we will add the word not. So for example, can, as in no ability, will be cannot, beautiful. On one side, we have the form in the positive. I can, I could, I must, I have to, I should, I will, I would, I will, I shall. And on the other, we have our negative. I can't. That's the contraction. Cannot, can't. I couldn't. I mustn't. I don't have to. I shouldn't. I wouldn't. I won't. I shan't. We have one more visual that will show you all of the auxiliaries and their meanings. Before we go, if you want to take a picture of the visual we have here with all of the words in the positive and the negative, now is a good time to do so. If you have any questions, please type them in the section below, okay? One more image. Yeah! My goodness, Evie is so beautiful and smart and capable. My goodness, what do I do with anybody? What am I supposed to do? I don't know what you're asking me to do with those hands. What are you, a cat?
Get out of here.
Oh.
You're terrible.
I am. But you know what? You're amazing. So it's a balance. Can we make this a
Throw
little...
tomatoes at you.
Como?
I'll throw tomatoes at you. You play around with me.
All I heard was tomatoes, and now I'm hungry. And I want a tomato. I want a bagel and a tomato. Do we have tomatoes? God, I'm hungry. Okay, so English modal verbs for the situation. I love this visual because we can see the reasons we make the choices that we make and some good examples. So for example, you have the situation. What is the situation? I have a request. I need you to do something for me, or I want you to do something for me. A request. Usually a request is when you ask someone to do something for you. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 different requests. Formal, informal, and 2 polite options. Now, we can use any of the 4, but sometimes it is more appropriate or correct to use one instead of the other. For example, with the word may, we may use the word may to ask for or request something. May I sit down here? Equally, a little less formal, informal is can. Excuse me, can I sit down here? A polite request of could I? Could I sit down here, please? Would. Would you mind if I sat down here? That last option of would you mind is the most polite and the best option if you want to ask someone that you do not know and you want to be very, very formal. Would you mind if I sat here? Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Would you mind if I had another cup of coffee? Would you mind explaining this to me again? Would you mind? I love this option. The next 2 options talk about permission. If we can scroll down a little bit. In the orange, we are talking about permission. In Spanish, the word is permiso. I want permission, maybe with authority, like a boss or a teacher, or for a child to their parent. I need permission to do something. May. You may sit down. Or can. You can sit down. We may use both the word may and the word can to describe permission to do something. For example, I have a doctor's appointment and I must go. May I leave early? I'm asking you for permission to leave early. I have a responsibility to continue my work. but still, I need to leave early. Now, with the yellow, we have 1, 2, 3 options talking about obligation. Let's park on these for a hot second because obligations, responsibilities, are very common. Must is an excellent word to talk about obligation. If you remember from my previous example, I said, I have to go to the doctor. I must leave early. I must leave early. You must tell the police the truth. You must. It is not an option. You have a responsibility and an obligation to tell the truth. You must tell the truth. You must be strong. You must practice your English if you want to improve. Should is like the example we had last week when we talked about the counsel or advice. You should tell your friends the truth. I have some advice for you. If you want to learn English, you should practice every day. If you want to be strong, you should run or do exercise every day. You should is usually used to give some counsel or some good advice. You should. The last one is ought to. Ought to is somewhat formal and it's not quite as common. Ought to. You ought to tell your friends the truth. You ought to. It's a good idea. We don't use it often. Ooh. Let's go down to our blue options when we talk about our possibilities. Now, you'll see we have a lot of auxiliary and modal verbs to talk about possibilities. We can use can for the present, could, especially if we're talking about the future or the past, might, because might, como podría. Yes, ma'am, Miss Carlita, it is. Miss Carlita is asking if the word should and debería are equal, and that is correct. Should is como debería. Should is talking about a responsibility or a good consejo, a good advice. When you have good advice about something, you say something, or even bad advice, you still say you should. You should practice more. Okay, so can talks about your general ability or a general possibility. It can rain sometimes. Now, if I want to talk about a possibility of the future, or if I want to talk about an inability in the past, I will use the word could. Could. It could rain today. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Perhaps yes, perhaps no. I don't know. It could rain today. But it's not common in this part of the country. Do you think you could live one day with no cell phone? I could. No? Miss Evie, do you think you could live without your cell phone?
I couldn't.
She says, I couldn't. What about you, Miss Carlita? Is Miss Lorena here? Who else is here this morning? Do you think that you could live 1 week with no cell phone? Because one day I could live one day without my cell phone, but I don't know about 1 week. I don't know.
Oh.
Funny story. Not funny story, but it's a story. This morning, I was running I ran in the woods near my home, in the park near my home, and I was lost. I could because it's in the past, and not because it's in the past negative. So no pude, I couldn't. Beautiful. Ah, but what, Miss Carlita? You couldn't what? So I couldn't, no pude, I couldn't find my way to my house to get ready to go to work. So I saw one man with his dogs, and I said, "Excuse me, could you help me find my house?" And he said, "No, use your cell phone." And I picked up my cell phone and I put in the Google my home address, and it gave me directions to my house. So I could not find my way home, but my phone could. And perhaps for this reason, I couldn't live my life without my cell phone for a week. Ah, no, I suffer. No. The word could and the word might are very similar when you talk about them in the present or the future. For example, it might rain. It is a possibility of the future, not the present, but the future. So, it is very cloudy today. It might rain later. Equally, it could rain later. I don't know. It's a possibility. Okay, so if everyone is ready, more or less, let's take a quiz. I'm all excited. I don't know. Could you live without the internet for a week? Oof, no. Hold up. Procost, now the other one. The other one. That one. Sorry, I had to look at the computer screen. Anyways, so could you live without the internet for a week? Could you? I don't think I could.
I couldn't live without the internet for 20 minutes.
I could live without the internet for 20 minutes. I'm not like...
As long as I'm not out in public, I'm fine. Like...
All right, so we have a lot of options in our beautiful quiz, and we're going to take them piece by piece. So for number 1, before this year, I moved out of my parents' house because I did not have a job. Okay, so now we are talking about something in the negative. So we have the word not at the end, right? It's all of them should be negative. Before this year, I moved out of my parents' house because I did not have a job. So, before this year is present, past, or future? I think it is past. So we are looking for a verb or auxiliary that is in the past. We also want one auxiliary that is negative. So we want both, past and negative, past negative. right? So before this year, I moved out of my parents' house because I did not have a job. Should it be may not, cannot, should not, could not, or shall not? Ooh, what a nice proper challenge. May not, cannot, could not, should not. Oopsies. Should not, could not, shall not. What do you think the answer should be? Well, we will not use the word may or cannot, so A and B are not possible. Why? Because they are talking about the present and not about the past. So we will not use option A, nor will we use option B, because they're both in the present. Should not is talking about a good idea or advice or counsel for a person. So we will not use the word should not because it's como no debería. And shall, the last option, talks exclusively about the future. Something shall happen in the future. So for this reason, we won't use the word shall not, nor should not, cannot, or may not. We must use the word could not. Could not. Before this year, I could not move out of my house because I did not have a job. Let's look at our next option. Okay, the story continues. But now that I have finished college and have a job, I realize that living at home space drive my parents and me crazy. Now, we are talking about a possibility, right? We're talking about a possibility. But now that I have finished college and have a job, I realized that living at home drive my parents crazy. What word will we use? We are talking about a possibility of the future. It's a possibility of the future. Come on, Miss Carlita, Miss Brenda. Now, would have and should have, our last two options at the bottom, are both in the past. Because would have and should have are in the past, we will not use either of those options, would have or should have. And should, again, is something that is like counsel or advice. So we must choose between the word could and the word would. Could talks about a possibility of the future, and would does too. But would talks about the probability of the future.
Can and will, right?
Hmm?
Can and will.
Can and will.
Can, could, will, would.
Ah, yeah. So can in the possibility is could, and will as a possibility is the word would. It's more, would is more guaranteed. Would is more certain. If you say, it would be this, it's a possibility, but it is more secure. Because of this, in this sentence, we will use the word could, because we're talking about a potential outcome or a potential situation. But now that I have finished university, we could have driven each other mad. Number 3. Unfortunately, it's not as easy to find an apartment in the city. Without an agent, you be able to find all of the available listings. Oof. You. Okay. It's negative because we have the word not at the end, but now we're talking about a possibility. Letter A is ought to. Where is ought to in this list? Right, we're talking about an obligation. Ought to is an obligation, nothing more. So we will not use the word ought to. So let's see, must. Where is must on our list? Also an obligation, so it cannot be must. Okay, what is our next option?
Should.
Should. Let's see, where is should on our list?
Oh, here and here.
Where?
Obligation and logical conclusion.
Okay, we have obligation, we have logical conclusion. Well, let's look at our subject sentence. It is not easy to find an apartment in the city. Without an agent, you not be able to find an available listing. So, are we talking about an obligation? No. So for the first 3 options, we will not use the word ought to, must, or should. We won't use the words ought to, must, or should. Let's look at our next one, the word might. Where's might? Might be the option. What's that now? Might. I like that. It's a possibility, but it's weaker, como less fuerte, menos fuerte, less fuerte.
Spanish.
I can Spanglish. So, might is a possibility. Maybe menos fuerte, less strong, weaker than the word may. Might. It's possible. In Spanish, the word is podrían, right? So you could say, I might be obliged to help you out. Or I might forget my coffee. I won't ever forget my coffee. So let's return to our quiz.
So might is a possibility.
Might's a nice possibility. In fact, I think that is the answer, because possibility is where we use the word might.
Oh, but Sarah, why is it not can when we have can as a possibility?
Why would you bring that up?
I'm so sorry. But
I had an easy out,
No, look,
sister.
so that they know, because I would think, oh, it could be might, it could be can, because they're both in this list. See?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and look, can is up here too, permission, and
Permission.
can is so good. And you can use can for everything.
Okay. You are right. Can is so very versatile. And in this case, we're not going to use the word can, because can is, if you return to the page, it is talking about a possibility, but it's a strong possibility. And might, if you see, is a weaker possibility. Can talks about a general possibility, and it is, ready, more probable. More probable.
You cannot be able to find all the available listings.
So, cannot be able to find all of the available listings if we use the word can. You cannot. You cannot find, you cannot be able to find all of the available listings. There's two reasons that this is incorrect. The first is that cannot is very definitive, very strong, and there is a guarantee that it is not possible. We see in the parentheses that we're talking about a possibility. Therefore, we won't use the word can. Furthermore, more importantly, when you see the word be able to, we will not use the word can, because if you remember, to be able to is equal to the word can. We use either one, to be able to, or the other, can, but we will not use both together. For this reason, because we are talking about a possibility, a weak possibility, but a possibility, we will use the word might. We might not be able to find all of the available listings. Let's try one, maybe two more.
That was such a good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Keeping me on my toes and young.
I don't know if you know this, but I actually use you as a point of reference for when I teach.
Aww.
So if I ever ask you to explain things, it's because I don't know how to explain them very well, and I need you. I need you. Please don't do this to me.
Make a note. Ask me later.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so for number 4, before now, I couldn't sign a lease. A lease, por cierto, a lease is a contract for the rental of a property or a vehicle. If you go to rent a vehicle, they call it a lease, a vehicle lease. Before now, I couldn't sign a lease, but now I, space, because I am 21. Woo, so
Grown.
young.
I'm grown, man.
So young. 21 is like a baby. Before now, I couldn't sign a lease, but now I, because I am 21. All right, so now, able, if you remember from the PowerPoint slide, what are you doing? From the PowerPoint slide, be able to is equal to can. However, como siempre, however, we need one form of the verb to be. So, for example, I am able to, or you are able to, for example. I am able to, you are able to. Before now, I could not sign the lease. So the word could and not is something in the past. In this case, we are talking about ability, the ability to do something. Now, all right, Miss Carla. Miss Carla has answered letter D, can do. Before now, I couldn't sign the lease, but now I can do because I am 21. A child. In this case, Miss Carlita, you are very close. We will not use the word do because we don't need a verb. So if we don't use do, what should the answer be? I can. Now I can. But Miss Carlita is correct. Because we are talking about the present, we will use the word can. Now I can. Excellent job. Let's look at our last option. Our last one, because we don't have time to do all. I asked my friends for help, to help me, not for, but to help me move, because I knew that fit all my possessions. Beautiful, Miss Carlita, you're perfect. I asked my friends to help me move because I know that I fit all my possessions into my little car. All right, we're talking about an inability. Inability. With the inability, let's just knock this first one out right now. Number one, can't be able to. Can't be able to. We're talking about a possibility or an inability, so we can't say that. Can't or be able to, they're equal, but we don't use them together. It's either one or the other. So, I not able to, also we cannot use. Why? Because we need one form of the verb to be. I not able to, And don't be able to is also negative, but we cannot say it like that. We must say, I am not able to. Now, the last two are possibilities. Let's see. I asked my friends to help me move. This is in the past. We're talking about something in the past. I asked my friends to help me move because I knew that I couldn't fit all my possessions in my little car. Because let's go back to our visual. When we talk about a possibility of the past, especially, we'll use the word could. Could is always in the past or the future. So, because we're talking about the past, in this case, we are going to use the word could. And if you can go to the negative visual where we see the negatives, with the word could, in the negative it's couldn't. I couldn't. I couldn't. So, for our quiz, let's look at the sentence again, and I will read it with the correct answer. I asked is in the past, I asked my friends to help me move because I knew that I couldn't fit all my possessions into my little car. All right. That is everything for today. We did not have time to review our reading, but I thank you for your time and your patience. This was perhaps a challenge. Did anyone complete the homework that was posted the last week with the quiz and the test for the auxiliary verbs? If you had a problem or a confusion about the homework, please make a comment in the Google Classroom. We can respond to you in the Google Classroom and we can explain the answer. If you need to sign up for tutoring, please register for tutoring in the Google Classroom and we can set up a time to tutor. If you have any questions about the material or any questions about your homework, Please write so in the Google Classroom. That way we can see and respond. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and your patience. You are beautiful students, wonderful people, more than I deserve. I'm very grateful. We are very grateful to have you here. Thank you for your time and your patience. Don't forget, log into your Google Classroom, review the material posted, ask questions, do your homework, and don't forget to practice, 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 because practice makes perfect. Thank you.